Welcome back to Earth Changes Radio, episode 22, The Heavenly Fires in Our Sky. This episode, the hosts talk about the changes around the Earth now happening. And now, the two guys who make Hillary Clinton give up politics, it's Rick and Steve on the Terraforming Earth Network. Take it away, boys.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Carol. Love it. All right. Welcome to another episode of Earth Changes Radio, earthchangesradio.com. Today is August the 8th, 2017. Finally got the date right. I think I've been falling down too much in the woods. Got a lot of important things today. First of all, if you're suffering from mental illness and or depression, please be advised that tonight's show content is going to be very disturbing. If you are a snowflake or easily triggered, lock yourself in the closet now. Good evening, Steve. Good to see you again. Got a lot of news from Australia, and I'm not sure that the people are really going to appreciate this. Number one, I have here in Australia, is energy prices have gone up 15%, that the solar wind industry is completely failing in Australia. Really bad news for folks in Australia. You may want to start making some phone call and kicking some behinds. Not that it's going to do you any good. Another story I have here from Australia. Love talking about you guys down there, Steve. A flesh-eating bacteria. People who are wading into the ocean are coming back as though they had been attacked by piranhas, jellyfish, and sharks. But it's none of the above culprits. It is a flesh-eating bacteria. Got a lot of these things going on around the world, Steve. It's not just Australia. And tonight we had a startling news story coming out of NBC News from the CDC here in the United States of America on August the 8th. I don't know if it's so much as disclosure or if it's having your hand called. And the news story was a 15-second story, headline story for ABC News tonight. You may check into this, but they only make these stories run 15 seconds or less, so that most people don't really catch it, or they don't think that it's very important. But the story is that cancers now are an epidemic at epidemic levels in the United States of America, not only affecting people over 55 years of age, but 55 years and below, and especially small children. They, to this point, Steve, have no explanation to what is causing this. I think that our chat room participants here can give you at least 5 reasons why this is happening. But science and the CDC is drawing a blank. And what's the most incredible part of all of this is that they say that this cancer is growing so quickly, so exponentially, nationally, that it is growing at a rate of 1% per year. It means in 10 years that 10% of the population from this day forward will have cancer. So maybe we'll talk about this a little bit more in the show, Steve, but great to see you. How you doing tonight, bud?
Well, sir, Mr. Earthplay, a very good morning, a very good evening, a very good afternoon, regardless of your time zone out there on the great planet Earth that we live on this great big blue ball, this marble in the sky, as Carl Sagan once called it. First of all, I'd like to say a very big welcome to all the chat participants in the Earth Changes Radio, episode 22, which is The Heavenly Fires in the Sky, where we talk about the changes above the Earth today. Very, very interesting story, as you mentioned, that happened in a Melbourne beach. But before we get to that, I'd like to say a big thank you and a big shout out to all of our sponsors of the show, which include the Southwest Backpacker. It includes Organite by Mishkaites. And of course, our new sponsor, HowToWinInCourt.com. You can check out all those banners on our webpage at earthchangesradio.com itself, where we have all the shows archived. We have the downloads for the MP3 podcasts and everything. First of all, this young guy who went into the Brighton beach, he apparently got attacked. They've found the culprit. It's not a flesh-eating virus. It is, in fact, a swarm of sea fleas. That's what the scientists have found. They've got a jar of them, and these things apparently they attack when there is a small trace amount of blood in the water. They're postulating, they're theorizing that there was a dead fish nearby where he stood, and because he stood very still, they had a chance to attack him. If he was swimming or if he was walking through the ocean, he would have been safe. They couldn't actually get a hold of his legs or his feet, but he was just standing there in the water for a period of time, and apparently they were having a feast on his legs. And there's some kind of chemical in their attack, in their antenna, in their proboscis. Well, that's what they're saying. That's what the experts are saying, that these are a type, a species of sea flea that are found in Australian water. Nevertheless, I wouldn't be surprised if they're lying, but it certainly is good to be here. We have a lot of stories to get through today, and in fact, this is the changing earth that we're living in, and the changing earth that we live upon, and the earth above us that is also changing. There's a lot of things happening in space news, but before we do that, I'd like to say thanks, Mr. Earthplay, and a very big welcome to everybody, and back to you, sir. Mic is open.
Thank you, Steve. And one of the reasons that we're having such a problem in the oceans, some of the pollutions and the cancers that I just recently spoke about, is the recent story, and we don't get very many stories coming out of Fukushima, so we relish the ones that we do get. But they're now telling us that hot particles with over 1 quadrillion becquerels per kilogram is now being detected. The radioactive material that is airborne around the nuclear facilities, radioactive materials contain uranium, plutonium, polonium, americium, and neptunium. Many of you think that I just made that up, but I didn't. So actually they can't get within 100 yards of these reactor buildings, even in shielded armored equipment. Is instant death. You will die within 1 minute. And they're still wondering and scratching their heads in the academic and medical world as, gee, what could be causing all of these cancers, Steve? Another story that I have going here tonight is another very unfortunate story. You know, what is the difference between doom and gloom, Steve, and just reporting what's going on around you? So I've been getting accused of being a doom and gloomer recently just for reporting what's going on around us, but Canada today just released its crop yields, and it's the smallest yield ever on record, which coincides incidentally by some of the coolest temperatures in Quebec area ever recorded. Now they're manipulating the weather data here to make everybody think that it's just miserably hot, and that is not the case. As a matter of fact, it has started to snow in the Rocky Mountains here in August, and that is usually a Halloween event. We're looking for snow around Halloween, a little bit after Halloween. We're right in the middle of our chili harvest season. We're getting snow in the Rocky Mountains. We're not the only ones. The news media is deceiving everybody about what's actually going on there globally, moving into this next grand solar minimum, and we'll have more on this, but of course Canada is not the only one having the problem. The United States is having the problem, China, Russia, and what's going on in South America, they may not even ever recover. South America is one of the richest regions for citrus fruits on the entire earth. And they supply citrus to the entire Earth region. Right now, it looks like the Arctic Circle. It is frozen from the tip of the bottom all the way to the top of Venezuela. National emergencies in all 12 provinces of South America. Really tragic. So the bottom line here is, Steve, that globally, all nations of the world are reporting below average food and crop yields. So moving into a grand solar minimum, this can't sound like it's going to get any better to me.
Nothing to see here, folks. Move along, move along. The experts will tell you it's all global warming and it's all your fault because you drive an SUV and you buy the gas from the gas stations. And those poor petrol companies are not making enough money, so we need to start pumping the money into the gas stations and into all these major corporations because it's your fault, of course. You know that. But nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here. What's happening in the world of technology? There's some amazing things happening this week. Believe it or not, we grew up with Star Trek thinking, wow, that's science fiction. Nothing like that could ever happen. But guess what? Tricorders are now a reality. They're no longer a Star Trek prop. They actually have tricorders that they're going to be using in the International Space Station. That's kind of old news, but these things are handheld devices, very small, very handy, and they can be used to basically check out or treat anybody in a small confined space. Another amazing story, the university has recently developed a miracle device that can heal, that can heal organs and tissue in a fraction of a second. This sounds like Star Trek Voyager stuff, with the famous doctor being able to go, and that's it. It's starting to heal. It regenerates your tissue. Get that. That is where we're heading in this world. We're heading into a world of amazing technology. A device that can heal organs and tissue in a fraction of a second. It can repair your actual cells. Well, yes. Will we get to see it, or will it be only those who can afford it? Those who've got the money that can afford that kind of technology? I don't know. But nevertheless, we are moving very, very rapidly into the 21st century. And will it be an Elysium type event where we saw in the movie where only the rich get all this expensive medical treatment? Quite possibly. The way it's going, quite possibly. We still haven't drained the swamp, Mr. Earthplay, and I'm still waiting for that to happen. Amen. Lock her up. Lock her up. That's the first step to draining the swamp, is get rid of that old toothless snagglepuss alligator that is causing the problem in the swamp today. What say you, Earthplay?
I really wish you hadn't asked me that question, Steve. I wasn't ready to go in that direction, but the more that you drain the swamp, the smellier it gets, and it's really getting smelly. Today I was really startled. Donald Trump is a very dynamic person with his tweets and his offhanded remarks, but especially concerning for me today, Steve, is he's starting to sound like one of these war hawks, these Democratic war hawks that are trying to push for war with Russia. And by the way, I did notice that today Russia is not interfering with our elections. I don't know why they dropped the story or why I didn't hear anything about that. But today Donald Trump told the world that if North Korea even so much threatens us ever again with nuclear war, that there will be fire, fury, and power, the likes of which the world has never seen before. Now that's a pretty tall order. It would have to be nothing less of a nuclear cataclysm, in my opinion. And you know, we only dropped about a 40 megaton, or not megaton, but a kiloton, 40 kiloton bomb on Hiroshima, Nagasaki. It might not even been that much. But in the new nuclear arsenal, we don't talk about kilotons anymore. We talk about megatons, hundreds and thousands of times more powerful than the bombs that were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I've said for a long time, I'm very well known for saying this, I don't believe that humanity will survive the nuclear age, if we have a war or not. The Middle East is already saturated with depleted uranium. Even the Israelis are now fearing for future generations and the survival of Israel, just based on the birth rate of Israel, which is declining so fast that they're in a crisis right now. Maybe they ought to start making friends with the Palestinians if they're going to survive. I don't know. But that's not the only region. Iraq, the entire Middle East, most of northern Africa, it's pretty bad. The Pacific Ocean. This nuclear genie has been out of the bottle for 50 years, and it has done nothing but toxified the world. Yes, we have medical technology created out of cobalt-60 for x-ray machines and other medical technologies, but other than that, we just don't need this stuff, Steve. I wish you hadn't asked me that question, because I'm furious to the point where I could literally spit and begin cussing. So I think that Trump is now showing his true colors as to being right in the pocket of the UN, the United Nations, NATO, and the world bankers. Look at, all of his friends and associates, the people that he's bringing into his administration, millionaires and billionaires. These are the people that make and break countries. So I'm not so sure if they're not just draining the swamp and taking out the alligators and just replacing them with an exotic breed of crocodiles.
Oh, come on, Mr. Earthplay, you're fear-mongering again. Listen to yourself. If radiation was that bad, I mean, it's actually really good for you, so the newspapers tell me. If radiation was that bad, they would not allow these corporations and companies and governments to play with this stuff, to play with uranium and plutonium like kids in a sandbox. Didn't you know that? If it was so bad for us, that they would not have allowed nuclear industry to exist, surely. I mean, am I just blowing smoke out my ass? I probably am. But you're quite right. There is a lot of talk of war and rumors of war today, and that's happening in the world today. And while it's happening, while they're spouting off, doing this theater for the masses, Google itself is playing a part in the chant for war. The massive mega corporation, Google, their new search protocol, their new algorithm, is actually restricting access to anti-war websites. So people who don't want to see war, people who want to see peace in the world, Google are blocking the search engine so people can't get to see those websites and can't get to see what's being written about that. How is it that a company like Google plays a part in covering up the push for peace? Well, that's how. That they're a part of it. They're a part of the push for war. I wouldn't be surprised if they've got stocks in Raytheon and Northrop Grumman and all these weapons manufacturing companies. To me, it is just sickening that a company like Google, with such power over the individual and power over the search algorithms for people, has that ability to do that. That to me is very, very scary. One more technology story I want to share with you before handing to you, Mr. Earthplay. This is quite fantastic. We've all heard of alternate power sources, including water. We've heard of alternate power sources, including hydrogen-fueled cars and all kinds of solar power. But how about this? How about a battery that is fueled by your spit? That's right. You heard me right. Your saliva that can actually power a battery and light up an LED light. Saliva-powered batteries. Now that is a fantastic thing. We never run out of spit. Well, some of us might do, depending on how dry the day is. But having a battery that's powered by spit or any kind of wastewater, that to me is amazing. But once again, will we get to see this technology, or will it only be those who can afford it and those who don't really need it to get that technology? People like Al Gore. Should this guy be telling us to stop using all of our power and stop burning up the carbon fuels when he flies around in a jet, when his home powers enough for 63 people to live in? His home burns enough energy for 63 people to actually live? Well, I don't know. Sounds a bit like a hypocrite to me, an inconvenient hypocrite. That's what I would call him. Go ahead there, Mr. Earthplay. My Texman 2's dog is just waiting for that battery power. Go ahead, sir. Your mic.
Okay. Thank you for that report, Steve. Look, before I start talking about the solar minimum and some things that are going on in space around us right now, I want to take a moment out here for something a little bit more concerning to me in the economic and political world. You all are aware of the United Nations and something that they call Agenda 21, which is sustainability. And they're trying to, actually what they're trying to do is they're trying to reclaim a lot of land, farmland, forest lands, natural habitat, which sounds really good and nice, but what they're doing is they're forcing people out of rural areas into cities. And you probably think that this is a little bit insane and that they could never do anything like that. But they used Canada as a pilot project in this sustainable economy. And what they decided to do was to put up roadblocks, or not roadblocks, but gates to the openings of all the highway on-ramps and off-ramps to see if they could effectively control people's habits and accesses to the freeway and it worked. Now, gates are a national structure of the Canadian highway system. They can just say, well, we have a wreck ahead, we're going to close this road for the next 10 miles, or whatever they choose to do. We have constitution-free zones in America that are popping up. Drug-free zones. That means an aspirin, folks. That includes herbal remedies. And they're damn serious. You will go to prison for being in a drug-free zone, which would be around a school, except if you are a gang member or a drug dealer, which really doesn't make a lot of sense. But now they want to expand this program to the United States because it was so damn successful in Canada that the people, like lemmings, would literally jump off the edge of the cliff depending on which way that they closed the fences and on-ramps and off-ramps to their freeways and highways. And the infrastructure already exists, ladies and gentlemen. When they started putting in these noise and privacy barrier walls along the interstates going through the inner cities, that's not what they were for, folks. That was so that they could have a controlled funnel of traffic and people. That is their design. You could read it in the Agenda 21, and it's been implemented in every U.S. American city. So all they have to do now is put up the gates. That's it. Pretty disturbing from my perspective that these nations are getting away and implementing these policies and procedures on the public people without their knowledge or their consent. And here's another thing. Now I don't know if it's in every state, but I do know here in New Mexico that if you are at a roadblock, and it doesn't matter what kind of roadblock, a seatbelt roadblock, a DWI roadblock, a safety inspection roadblock, a drug enforcement roadblock, immigration roadblock, Border Patrol. So now you have all these roadblocks. If there is a computer, a laptop, or any electronic device within the sight of the administrating officer, they are now compelled to take the data. They have special machines now, computers hooked into their police cars and units, to where, and it's an external hard drive that's stored in the trunk, and they just plug in the appropriate cord to your device, and they download all of your information. That is part of the evidence collection procedures now required for the courts. So I'm telling you, the more technology that we have, the more it's going to be used against us. Even our own computers, handheld devices, notebooks, cell phones, once you become under arrest, they believe that your cell phone is the most incriminating evidence that they have against you, regardless of whatever you have been charged with. I don't know how you feel about this, folks, but I'm going to start leaving my cell phone at home. Go ahead, Steve.
Well, thank you very much again, Mr. Earthplay. Well, you know, if you do get in trouble with the law, the best thing to do is say nothing and visit howtowinincourt.com and check that website out. There is some fascinating information about what to do in case you are trapped by the state or the powers that be, or these elite gangs that roam around with a shiny badge and a gun and tells you what to do. You know, we've been talking about the earthquakes that are happening on the earth, which are ramping up. We're seeing unprecedented amounts of earthquakes around the world at the moment. In this radio show, we've been talking about the swarms that have been happening at where is it? Oh, Yellowstone. That's right, the real big one, that if it goes off, we're all dead. We're all going to die. Doom and gloom. Oh, my gosh, it's Terrell and Hijacker. Not really. It is Rick and Steve telling you that they're reporting this week another swarm of earthquakes. 1,400 earthquake swarm has hit Yellowstone supervolcano, and there are fears that it is about to blow. But they've been saying it's about to blow. How many years now, Earthplay? How many years has it been that it's almost about to blow? I mean, gosh, how many movies have they made about this stuff? Honestly, do you really think it's going to blow Earthplay? I don't. I think it's going to blow as much as these politicians blow, and that's a lot of hot air, and that's about all. That's what I think. I think we're due for another earthquake or another supervolcano to blow, probably in another 20,000 years. But who can tell? Nobody knows when or where it might strike or when it will happen. It could even happen underneath or a different location completely than we all suspect or all think. These things happen out of the blue. Welcome to the room there, CJ4. Go ahead, Mr. Earthplay. At exactly 4 minutes to the half-hour break, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Steve, and absolutely true. Yes, all kinds of activity at Yellowstone National Caldera, and earthquake swarms continue to this day in Lincoln, Montana. Day after day, there's been undulating, there has been mud pots, there has been acid. Some of the geysers, if you're on Facebook, you'll see that many of the geysers that have been dormant for 20, 40, 50 years, or that may have only erupted once in the last 50 years, are now all erupting. So there's definitely a lot of activity at Yellowstone. Now, as far as an eruption goes, I do believe that an eruption at Yellowstone is imminent. But I don't think that it's going to be catastrophic or global. I think that it's going to be a local event, like the eruption of a volcano, or maybe magma on the surface. It takes a long time for a caldera to collapse. It takes a lot of displacement, many volcanoes. So if I do expect there to be an eruption there very soon, probably at Norris Basin, or at the Norris Basin geyser, if you're asking my professional opinion. And it will be very much like a volcano. And it will garner world observation. Everybody will be concerned. It will be headline news. But it's not until you have a second volcanic eruption, a third volcanic eruptions, until you have multiple eruptions happening throughout the park. So one volcanic eruption, say the size of Mount St. Helen, were to occur in Yellowstone, which I believe that will be the case, and that we'll probably all witness this, but not on the epic scale of past cataclysms of the 640,000 years ago, where the whole caldera just went up all at once. I don't believe that is what we're looking at here. But I would submit to you, no, we don't have to wait another 20,000 years, 10,000 years, 5,000 years now. I would say to you that some of the world's largest volcanoes are waking up right now. Look at Italy, Vesuvius, Etna, Stromboli, Saccademina, Marapi, not Kilimanjaro, but come on, Inky Krakatau. There's so many of them, and they're all waking up, and they're erupting very frequently. The Aleutian Islands has become almost a death trap. There's so many volcanic and subterranean eruptions, and the seafloor is very shallow in the Bering Sea. During these earthquakes and volcanic outbreaks, you know, if you're anywhere within 5 miles of one of these eruptions, you're in real danger. 10 miles. And that's just from surface undulation. It's not fallout or things being thrown from the volcano or anything of that nature. So we're living in a very precarious time as far as earthquakes and volcanoes go. Steve, you well know that the earthquake activity is up 400% worldwide just since the year 2000 to the year 2010. And the last 7 years haven't slowed down any at all. But we're going to talk about some more of this in the next half hour. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We have a lot of great stuff coming up.
Well, thank you very much. Again, Mr. Earthplay, you are listening to Earth Changes Radio on earthchangesradio.com, coming to you live and direct across the planet and across the world in real time. I'm having a fantastic time. Hope you are as well. We'll be back with audience participation after this short message break, brought to you by this week, brought to you by the American government. here's a special announcement.
Hello, I'm from the U.S. government. We noticed you managed to cockblock our latest attempt to strip you of your health care. Now you can finally relax and let down your guard. Cause after 7 long years of trying to undo the legacy of that brutal Muslim Kenyan dictator, we realize it's finally time for us to move on to something else, such as sabotaging Obamacare to justify our next attempt to strip you of your health care and replace it with wealth care. Do you suffer from a pre-existing condition such as not being rich? No problem. Unlike complex Obamacare, wealth care offers a simple solution. If you ain't as rich as Mitch McConnell, just fuck off and die. No mess, no fuss. That's right. By leaving over 20 million more of you uninsured, cutting Medicaid, raising premiums, and discriminating against a raft of pre-existing conditions, wealth care should kill at least 36,000 of you annually. That's 12 9/11s each year, which might sound like a lot of dead people, but it's a sacrifice we're willing to make to protect innocent Americans from socialism. We know we've struggled recently to pass wealth care in the Senate, but rest assured we won't stop till we repeal Obamacare. And what's that? What you really want is Medicare for all, like most other civilized nations in the world? Aw, sweetheart, you know there's no money for that. But hey, here are some things we do have money for. Trump's visits to Mar-a-Lago, Trump's golf games, big boat that shoots $1 million missiles, more of these useless pieces of shit, maintaining the American empire, and of course $3.2 trillion for the most expensive crappy healthcare in the world, when Medicare for all would cost only half that much. Wealth care. Who needs healthcare anyway when you have Jesus? Authorized by the Department of Wealth and Inhumane Services.
Hi, this is Grandson Cleric, and you are listening to Earth Changes Radio with Rick and Steve on the Terraforming Earth Network.
This is Patrol Devlin. You are listening to Earth Changes Radio with Rick and Steve on the Terraforming Earth Network, live on powertalk.com. Tashi Delek. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Earth Angel, and you're listening to Earth Changes Radio with Rick and Steve on paltalk.com.
Hi, my name is Scott, also known as Great Message. You're listening to Earth Changes Radio with Rick and Steve on paltalk.com. Cow, it's been so long since I used this thing, I forgot how to turn the mic on.
Hi, my name is Chuck Norris, and we're kicking ass to Earth Changes Radio at paltalk.com.
Hello, my name is Michael Caine, and you are listening to Earth Change Radio on paltalk.com.
You are listening to radio. What's it called again?
Earth Changes Radio.
Hello, my name is Cheryl, and you're listening to Earth Changes Radio on paltalk.com.
My name is Mindy's mum, and I mop floors when I listen to Earth Changes Radio on paltalk.com.
With over 150 million registered users, Paltalk is the largest online chat community in the world. With over 300 Paltalk support staff speaking dozens of languages to help you enjoy your online experience. Meet new people across town, country, or continent while chatting about your interests. Sing live karaoke, listen to music, join a lively political debate, or play group trivia in one of thousands of chat rooms in various categories from your PC, your tablet, or mobile device. Joining Paltalk is free and easy. Go to paltalk.com and become part of our friendly community today.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and you're listening to... Oh, I forgot what it was, because it's moved.
Hi, I'm Ruby, and you're listening to Earth Changes Radio on paltalk.com with Rick and Steve.
My name is MW, and I have found peace from horse shit.
Well, that certainly is a blessed piece of horse shit if ever I've heard one, if ever I've seen one, if ever I've smelt one. It's got to be MW's horse shit that is the best quality horse shit of all. God bless that man. You know, one of my favorite stories for this week is the discovery of the oldest known asteroid family ever discovered that they've found in the solar system has just been found this week. Fascinating stuff in and around and above the Earth, right here on Earth Changes Radio. Check that story out. Amazing stuff. Go ahead there, Mr. Earthplay. And don't forget, we do have audience participation. If you have something to say or would like to ask a question or chime in or even contribute to the show, you're very, very welcome to put your hand up right now, within now and the next 24 minutes. Go ahead there, Earthplay. Mic is open.
And thank you very much, Steve. And you may want to grab your calendars out. First of all, earthchanges.com. You know, Steve and I do not claim to be experts or professional broadcasters, reporters, or anything. We make no claims whatsoever. We only make the claim that we are in an unfortunate position that we are burdened with having to bring these news stories to the American people. We don't embellish them. We don't make them up. We just simply give you our perspective in the news that we're obtaining. Now, you may want to grab out your calendars because as many of you know, coming up this month, very exciting month, August the 21st, we have a full eclipse that'll be able to be seen from many countries. I think that Australia will not see this, and parts of China will not see this. Also on August the 12th, Saturday night, get out. The Earth will be moving through the tail of the Perseid meteor shower. Now, this is supposed to be one of the most spectacular meteor streams in our recorded society. That we won't see anything like this for another 96 years where the Earth goes directly through the Perseid's tail. They're saying that it's going to be so bright, so plentiful, that you'll even be able to see these objects in the daytime. Pretty fantastic. So get your cameras out there, put them on time-lapse, get out your telescopes and your binoculars. It's going to be great. The full moon is actually on the 21st as well, and I'm hearing from geologists and a lot of people that they really don't feel very comfortable with this next eclipse because it happens on a full moon, and because of the tidal positions and other factors, they think that there could be some consequences, i.e. perhaps even earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. So we have some pretty fascinating stuff here. Now, I actually think that the Taurid meteor shower is more interesting in February and March, and this is where we get a lot of objects to come in, like the Tunguska event. These are, we see fireballs and large objects coming into the atmosphere with very few impacts. I have not heard of very many impacts, but there are a few. Basically in February and March, but August through, it's late July through August, the third week of August, is the Perseid meteor shower, and I look forward to it every single year. I'm going to be out in the Rockies this year. I do have a expedition, Rocky Mountain Gaming Society thing going on that weekend, so I'm going to see what I can do about getting some video. Steve, go ahead.
Well, sir, the curious thing is, here in the eastern hemisphere of the world, we had a partial lunar eclipse just last Monday, August the 7th, Monday night. Here in Perth, unfortunately, it was overcast, and much of it was missed, but it went on for about 4 or 5 hours overhead, and was quite exciting to see the pictures of it. And indeed, that was here in Australia and around parts of Asia. We saw a partial lunar eclipse just this last Monday evening. Now, the next story I have is probably going to be a surprise to everybody, including yourself, Mr. Earthplay, that the source for up to half of the Earth's internal heat is actually unknown. We know that a lot of the heat comes from the core and the mantle, and that there are mantle waves, as Mr. Earthplay has always reported the last few years. But now they're saying that a lot of the Earth's internal heat, they don't know where this heat is coming from. whether or not it's being affected, and the story actually says the word neutrinos quite a bit, whether or not it is deep space rays, gamma rays, or these invisible neutrinos that are affecting the matter. Nevertheless, they don't know where this heat is coming from. So that there's still, as we know, a lot more to learn about the Earth, and we find it fascinating to talk about it here and to get the news out to you, what we find out and what we learn from week to week. So stay tuned to earthchangesradio.com, not earthchanges.com. Mr. Earthplay, go ahead. Your mic, sir.
Yeah, and I think that Texman 2 is here. Here in the chat room is absolutely correct. Where is all this extra and excess heat coming from? Politicians. Case closed. So, another mystery solved. You know, I'm getting a wider and wider vision of what's going on in this solar cycle, Steve, as you know that I've been looking at this very closely. And to try to paint you a picture, the Earth is not a perfect circle. Actually, it bows out. It's like somebody smashed a marshmallow. And the equators are much wider than at the top or at the bottom because of the equatorial bulge. And because of the way the magnetic field flows around the Earth, you know, the pole or open space, this is called a cusp, is only 3 to 5 miles from the surface of the ground to when you're actually in outer space. 3 to 5 miles at the Arctic or Antarctic. Where subsequently, if you were at the pole, the equator would be 12 to 15 miles above the Earth. Now, we're having these fluctuations with the Earth's magnetic field right now, and it's moving east towards Greenland again. First it was moving towards Siberia for about 10 years. Then it moved in the direction of Hudson Bay and Canada for about 6 months, and now in the last few months has been moving steadily east back towards Greenland. But here's the problem. We have these lines of magnetic force that are emerging worldwide. And one of the most prominent ones, and I've spoke about this before, is off the coast of Brazil. Now, Brazil is just south of the equator. And we have lines of north magnetic force that are reaching up over the equatorial bulge into the northern hemisphere and trying to couple. Now, here's my concern. There is a cusp is now forming over Brazil. Brazil has been a stable temperature jungle environment for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years. But with this cusp building in over the top of Brazil, brings the polar cusp, apolar cusp, closer to the Earth's surface, which would be 3 to 5 miles from the surface of the Earth, near the equator. This is not good, because as I have told you before, it's well below 200 degrees below zero, just in the top of the Earth's environment. In space, it is much, much colder, open space. So now we are starting to understand why those forests are freezing and snow is falling for the first time. Well, actually not the first time. This started to occur in about 2009. Now, I just recently got another report here from the Themis 5. You can look this up, the Themis 5 space program, where 5 satellites look intently at the Earth's magnetic field fluctuations, and they can even see opening in the ozone and ozone depletion in great numbers here. But what this report is showing here, and I'm getting this from the professor of climatology at the University of Ottawa in Canada, Professor Paul Beckwith, that for the 7th time in a short 2-year period that the northern jet stream has crossed the equatorial bulge again and coupled to the southern hemisphere jet streams. Now, the southern hemisphere right now is experiencing one of the coldest and most bizarre winter events on record. And this is This is something that is unexplainable to us in science. We do not understand even what the implications of this could be in the future. Now, this is the 7th time that it has been observed in all of human history. So I think, Steve, that some of these predictions of the Eddy Grand Solar Minimum aren't predictions per se, as they are historical fact in the geological record. They have occurred before, they will occur, and I actually believe that we're going to start seeing this process speed up, especially moving into the axis shift, moving into the autumn and the winter. Only time can tell, but I'm firmly convinced that we're in for a big cool down. And one of the implicating factors here is that in every solar minimum, it doesn't matter if it was a minor minimum, a medium, or even a grand solar minimum, as they're saying that we're moving into, without exception, there have been cataclysmic earth changes, continental shelves rising and falling, volcanoes erupting globally, as well as just about every fault line on Earth moving to some degree. It could be worse, it could be far less than previously experienced, but these things are pretty evenly distributed throughout the globe, and I think that we may be seeing that period of time. And we have more, Steve. You know, things can never be so bad that they can't get worse, because we are detecting another photon cloud or an ibex wave passing through our solar system, and we're still in one. So what the implications are to that, we still don't know. But as long as we have a magnetic field, everything is going to be fine.
Well, you know, Mr. Earthplay, there's a lot of talk this week, especially about the Debbie Wasserman-Schultz scandal that's happening that could implicate the DNC in having given access to overseas IT people that have actually tampered or even sold off America's secrets and America's intelligence, national security type stuff. Now, this is very, very interesting. If this breaks, this scandal has enough to bring down not only the Democrats, not only Hillary, not only Wasserman-Schultz herself, but to bring down a lot of senators and congressmen for participating or being a part of that blackmail attempt. Well, now in Australia, is this a sign that things are changing? There are calls now over the Commonwealth Bank scandal where these guys have been found to have been scamming people and making a lot of money where they shouldn't. There are now calls to jail bank CEOs who are reckless with people's money. Australian bank CEOs should face jail time. That's not law yet, but there are calls for that. So it could be a sign that things are changing. It could be just rhetoric, as the newspapers always do. They just put these things out to appease the masses. They get to think, oh yes, well that's good because they're going to do that. Well, they haven't done that yet. They haven't done it Icelandic style, where they just put all of these corrupt criminals, all of these corrupt bankers, all of these corrupt politicians, they just grabbed them and threw them in jail and started again, start brand new, a new slate. Now, I would like to see that happen. For every CEO or every politician that does not stand up to their promise and does not keep their promise, they should be held accountable, just like the rest of us. If you do bad at your job, you usually get fired. That usually happens. If you're no good at your job, or if you've been found to be a liar or giving company secrets away, there should be consequences. If you're screwing people over for their livelihoods, taking away their homes, taking away their money, and the money to feed their family, there should be consequences. And the fact that it's taken until now to actually say anything or do anything about it, well, it just shows how pathetic they are. And Mindy's mom just made a very, very good point. The energy companies in Australia are bleeding the people dry. I can tell you myself, I'm a single person living in this home, and I have a bill every 2 months of about $340. And that's not running everything. That's using the very, very basics. That's a lot of cash in Australian dollars to try and pay out every time the bill comes. But I'm struggling, but as everyone here in Australia, we're all struggling with this same energy corporations that are gouging people, and there is no restriction on them. There is no oversight to what they do. Yes, I know. In Australia, we should all be solar, but even so, that's a $5,000 outlay that I just don't have at the moment. We need people to start donating to the Patreon account for Earth Changes Radio for that to happen. But we got to buy you guys some T-shirts first. So that to me is more important than paying an electricity company. They can suck my left testicle on when I can afford it. They can get their cash, their blood money, and then they can go and do whatever they like with it. Go ahead there, Earthplay, sir. If you keep me going on this, I'm gonna get vile. I'm gonna start cussing. Mike is yours.
Okay, that's a mental image that I did not need. Now I'm wondering what's wrong with the right testicle. Okay, so I want to point your attention, of course, to earthchangesradio.com, where other shows and interesting things are posted there, but our new active Facebook page. Now, if you go over to our Facebook page and you like it, you're going to see all of the eclipses, the meteor showers. I have been keeping up to those pretty good on the Facebook page. We have a story up there about a map that shows you where you should not be drinking tap water in the United States of America, where fracking and chemical pollutions and other have not only saturated the ground and the ground soils with these things, but the aquifers as well, the lakes, rivers, ponds, streams that we already know are laden with mercury and lead, and that in almost all 50 states, and now I'm not aware if there is one. You could write me at earthplay@yahoo.com or post on our Facebook page at Earth Changes Radio, that in every state the game and fish department actually tell you don't eat more than 1 or 2 fish because the toxicity levels are so high. But yet you can go to your local grocery mart and buy as many fish as you want. You could eat them for breakfast, lunch, dinner. Hell, you can even snack on them throughout the day without any consequence. Now, I find that hard to believe. So we have many stories like that. We have Wigington's Geoengineering Global Alert News is being posted every week on our Facebook page. Now, this week I was a little disappointed with Dane. Because I think that Nephilim and I do everything in our power to talk about vaccines, geoengineering, and changes that are happening on the earth, and he spent his whole show cussing us out and excoriating us. Don't understand where he's coming from. I guess if you're not in jail or contributing thousands of dollars, you're just not doing enough. So this week's August 5th, 2017, Geoengineering Watch Global Alert News. Look, if you're guilty of economic or environmental crimes, you don't want to listen to him this week. And if you're not out there on the front lines talking about geoengineering and vaccines, losing family members and friends over this, he just doesn't want to have anything to do with you. So I was very kind of disappointed in this week's show. We're still very good friends, but I just wanted to give you that heads up. We also have a story here on the red sprites that were photographed over Europe earlier this year. We have these are ones that form very high in the atmosphere, red sprites, and these are the stick figures that our ancients put on caves and rocks and petroglyphs worldwide. There's almost an uncanny resemblance here. And then, of course, blue sprites that occur very much closer to the Earth's environment. You'll find all of these stories over at Earth Changes Radio. We also, remember I talked about a creek that ran from the Pacific Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean across America, the old Laurentian fault line. Now, there is a creek, and we did post this up here on Facebook, the parting of the waters. Pacific Creek water divides the United States and connects the Pacific to the Atlantic Oceans. So a very interesting story. I want to thank Strange Sounds for bringing that to our alert. So we have a lot of interesting things for you over there. Hydroponic farming, a lot of interesting things, and a few stories that I posted up there like artificial vanilla flavoring that Nephilim gave us. So if you have any suggestions, go over there to our Facebook page. We have a lot of more interactive dialogue. So Steve, it's been a great show. I passed on 19 news stories tonight. I think that's a new record for Earth Changes Radio. Just kept it moving. A lot of good information. I love what we're doing.
Well, sir, Mr. Earthplay, let me add to that tally and make it number 20. What's happening with the weather? Why is everything going crazy? And we're seeing some unprecedented weather patterns and weather anomalies happen in the world today. Well, back in 2016, the Inuit elders, and these are Eskimos that rely on the sun and the moon, the rising of the sun, to actually do their hunting. They have been warning that indeed the Earth has shifted. We have shifted. In fact, the sun is not rising in the usual location where these things happen. So I don't know what to make of that, whether or not they're on the money with this. They usually are. The people, the indigenous people, have a finely tuned system of recognizing this thing, and I'm sure there is something in that. But nevertheless, we are seeing some amazing weather changes and indeed some earth changes right here on planet Earth. But nevertheless, we do need to still keep our heads together. We still do need to be prepared and be prepared for everything. Not just physically, not just materially, but we need to be mentally prepared as people ready to live our lives as best we can with the things that we have, the resources that we have on Earth. So now's the time to be prepared. If you're not prepared yet, I would not recommend buying Terrell's newsletter. I would recommend listening in and finding out for yourself what's happening in the world. As far as Dane Wigington, Mr. Earthplay, we should put out a call for him to come here on the show and clarify his comments, because that's very, very interesting. We all are trying to do our best to get the information out there, and if he's attacking fellow researchers, then obviously he needs to clarify and to validate the statements that he has made. I would love to give him some questions. I would love to have his comments in here, and of course we would love to interview him. So put out an interview call for Mr. Dane Wigington. Hello, Dane Wigington. White courtesy phone for Dane Wigington. But we'll see whether or not he answers that call. Go ahead there, Earthplay. Your mic, sir.
I have no doubt. Yeah, Dane will come on the show. It's just a matter of timing. So I only had one more thing to add to that. You know, it's right there on the tip of my tongue. Somebody put it in the chat room. The elders, the Hopi elders, are here in New Mexico, and they've already started moving into the caves of Mount Taylor. Now, I was a little confused last week when I was talking about this, because apparently I said in the last age that we were destroyed by fire. That's not right. We were destroyed by ice and then water. And this time, moving into the fourth world, I think they said we're living in the fourth world, that the fifth world will come in with fire from space. And I think that's exactly what we're already seeing. And I've said this before, Steve, that the Mayan calendar was not wrong. How could the Mayans have been so wrong about the 2012 thing? Well, they weren't. Actually, we were wrong for many reasons, but the date turns out to be within the window of another. Now, this isn't a prophecy. This is a temple, an ancient structure found in Göbekli Tepe, that we're moving into the beam, a high energy beam coming from Cygnus, crossing the galactic, moving out across the galactic center. We're moving north above the ecliptic in the Milky Way galaxy now, and we're supposed to intercept this beam, and that's exactly what Göbekli Tepe is trying to tell us. The Mayans are telling us the same thing. The Hopis are telling us the same thing. The petroglyphs and the hieroglyphs that are found in every nation on Earth are telling us the same thing. And we're even seeing that in the night skies. When have you ever seen a red sprite in your entire life? Never. They have never occurred before in our society. And apparently we're in for a lot of firsts, Steve. Now, one more thing before we get off air and you sign us off here is the full solar eclipse, a full eclipse, lunar eclipse on the solar disk. This is going to give us a good chance, folks. Be paying attention. If Planet X is really out there, it should reveal itself. But I'm personally not going to put down even a quarter on that bet. So thanks everyone for being here. We appreciate you. Become a patron. Visit our website, earthchangesradio.com. It's the only way we can learn and grow is with your input. So with that, good night, Steve. Good night, everyone. Thanks for being here. Looking forward to next week.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Earthplace, sir. It's been a fantastic show. It's been fascinating. So, a lot of stories and a lot of things that are happening in the world. I hope you enjoyed the show. We put out a call to, or a shout out to our sponsors, which include Organite by Mishkaites, which include the Southwest Backpacker, BigWhoopMagazine.com, and of course, HowToWinInCourt.com. That ain't horseshit. That is for real. Hope you enjoyed the show. Stay with us. We're going to replay today's show in about an hour's time, and we certainly will be back here again next Tuesday night, 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern U.S. time, and of course in Australia, 9 to 10 a.m. on the West Coast. So hope you can join us then, and certainly do check out the archives. Do check them out at Stop Funding Israel on YouTube. There's a whole bunch of Earth Changes videos right there. Hope you enjoyed the show. God bless you all, and take care. God bless, and bye for now.
All right, we are now at cruising altitude. You may now put down your tray tables and front back seats, and are welcome to smoke and recline. Walk about the cabin as you see fit, but please, please leave your shoes on.
Welcome back to Earth Changes Radio, episode 22, The Heavenly Fires in Our Sky. This episode, the hosts talk about the changes around the Earth now happening. And now, the two guys who make Hillary Clinton give up politics, it's Rick and Steve on the Terraforming Earth Network. Take it away, boys.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Carol. Love it. All right. Welcome to another episode of Earth Changes Radio, earthchangesradio.com. Today is August the 8th, 2017. Finally got the date right. I think I've been falling down too much in the woods. Got a lot of important things today. First of all, if you're suffering from mental illness and or depression, please be advised that tonight's show content is going to be very disturbing. If you are a snowflake or easily triggered, lock yourself in the closet now. Good evening, Steve. Good to see you again. Got a lot of news from Australia, and I'm not sure that if it's having your hand called. And the news story was a 15-second story, headline story for ABC News tonight. You may check into this, but they only make these stories run 15 seconds or less, so that most people don't really catch it, or they don't think that it's very important. But the story is that cancers now are an epidemic at epidemic levels in the United States of America, not only affecting people over 55 years of age, but 55 years and below, and especially small children. They, to this point, Steve, have no explanation to what is causing this. I think that our chat room participants here can give you at least 5 reasons why this is happening. But science and the CDC is drawing a blank. And what's the most incredible part of all of this? Is that they say that this cancer is growing so quickly, so exponentially, nationally, that it is growing at a rate of 1% per year. People are really going to appreciate this. Number one, I have here in Australia, is energy prices have gone up 15%, that the solar wind industry is completely failing in Australia. Really bad news for folks in Australia. You may want to start making some phone call and kicking some behinds. Not that it's going to do you any good. Another story I have here from Australia. Love talking about you guys down there, Steve. A flesh-eating bacteria. People who are wading into the ocean are coming back as though they had been attacked by piranhas, jellyfish, and sharks. but it's none of the above culprits. It is a flesh-eating bacteria. Got a lot of these things going on around the world, Steve. It's not just Australia. And tonight we had a startling news story coming out of NBC News from the CDC here in the United States of America on August the 8th. I don't know if it's so much as disclosure, or it means in 10 years that 10% of the population from this day forward will have cancer. So maybe we'll talk about this a little bit more in the show, Steve, but great to see you. How you doing tonight, bud?
Well, sir, Mr. Earthplay, a very good morning, a very good evening, a very good afternoon, regardless of your time zone out there on the great planet Earth that we live on this great big blue ball, this marble in the sky, as Carl Sagan once called it. First of all, I'd like to say a very big welcome to all the chat participants in the Earth Changes Radio, episode 22, which is the heavenly fires in the sky, where we talk about the changes above the Earth today. Very, very interesting story, as you mentioned, that happened in a Melbourne beach. But before we get to that, I'd like to say a big thank you and a big shout out to all of our sponsors of the show, which include the Southwest Backpacker. It includes Organite by Mishkaites. And of course, our new sponsor, HowToWinInCourt.com. You can check out all those banners on our webpage at earthchangesradio.com itself, where we have all the shows archived. We have the downloads for the MP3 podcasts and everything. First of all, this young guy who went into the Brighton beach, he apparently got attacked. They've found the culprit. It's not a flesh-eating virus. It is, in fact, a swarm of sea fleas. That's what the scientists have found. They've got a jar of them, and these things, apparently, they attack when there is a small trace amount of blood in the water. They're postulating, they're theorizing that there was a dead fish nearby where he stood, and because he stood very still, they had a chance to attack him. If he was swimming or if he was walking through the ocean, he would have been safe. They couldn't actually get a hold of his legs or his feet, but he was just standing there in the water for a period of time, and apparently they were having a feast on his legs. And there's some kind of chemical in their attack, in their antenna, in their proboscis. Well, that's what they're saying. That's what the experts are saying, that these are a type, a species of sea flea that are found in Australian water. Nevertheless, I wouldn't be surprised if they're lying, but it certainly is good to be here. We have a lot of stories to get through today, and in fact, this is the changing earth that we're living in, and the changing earth that we live upon, and the earth above us that is also changing. There's a lot of things happening